The reason you can get an Alexa Echo for $30 or even free, on Prime is they're harvesting the data. And a lot of our clients understand and know that now. They want systems that are processing the data, but doing it either locally, or if it's going to the cloud, it's not to train some massive model, for Google or Amazon. It's being used by the manufacturers to improve the experience.
Our Touch Talk Gesture Dream, the future of Lux Tech user interfaces. A lot has happened even just in the past 5 years as to user interface, whether that be app generated, touch, or voice activated. And we have some expert panel here to kind of bring us through as to what's happening now, what our clients are engaging in and enjoying, and what's the future of that engagement. And so I want to introduce our panel. First, my name is Pavia. I work for Kenneth, Vona and Son. We're a New England master builder. And I had worked for an integrator in the past and now know a little bit about the building side. So I'm happy to be here and get through this panel with my local counterpart, Michael O. I used to compete with him, and I always say I'm always glad I'm at the table with him now on this side of it. So, Michael, you can talk a little bit about TSP.
Yeah, so TSP Smart Space is a traditional sort of integrator, but I think as we've talked about in a couple of different sessions now, we're really trying to define that kind of top tier integrator that's very design focused, very collaborative, and working with custom builders in the high-end residential. We do projects all over. So all of our clients tend to be Boston-centric or New England-centric, but these are people that are in that kind of, high net worth individual kind of category. So they have second, third homes. So we're doing projects in Iceland, in London, in Florida, and Yellowstone Club. And
we have JoAnn Arcenal with Crestron. And I know you've been on a few panels already, so they now know you well.
Yeah. So again, my name is JoAnn Arcenal. I'm Director of Business Development for Crestron Electronics. We are the, there's a lot of brands out there that manufacture smart home technologies. We are the only brand that can manufacture, engineer, and then support the full end-to-end solutions for your residential technologies. So that offers you an unprecedented and unmatched level of reliability, scalability, and flexibility as far as your residential technologies. So we're happy to be on this panel today to talk about that.
And we have Horacio Morales. He's with NICE, and just wanted to hear a little bit more of what you do for the company.
Absolutely. So my name is Horacio, and I work for NICE, a global company in automation, from gates, garage doors, and in NICE North America, I'm one of the vice presidents leading the builder team. And one of the things that we really focus on is the experience for the end user. When we talk about customer-centric and what does that mean to us, it's really thinking about how people live with our products.
I always encourage builders to find the right showroom, work with the right integrators that can kind of walk through. If you're ever in Boston, please stop by TSP. If you're in New York, see Crestron. And where's your highlighted showroom? Do you have one? Or
So in North America, it is in Carlsbad, California.
Okay.
But I highly recommend if you're ever in the Venice area, we have an amazing experience center in Ordesso, Italy, which is where our global headquarters is at. And it is just a beautiful campus with manufacturing. And obviously being an Italian company, we focus so much on design. Mm-hmm. So you start seeing a lot of those design cues in everything from workspaces all the way down to how we manufacture the products.
Showrooms are huge. And also if you can bring the designer, because there's so many elements and they're going to talk to you about that now. So we're going to start with Michael.
Yeah, so we'll talk about touch, I think, to start. I mean, the keypad, I think, is, certainly by code, you need some sort of lighting control. And it's the place to start, especially with luxury controls. We do a ton with this particular brand, but they're not a sponsor here. So, these guys do also really good keypad as well. And I think, there's both the aesthetic quality of it, But there's also really the functions within the keypad, which, to a certain degree, you sort of say, well, it's 4 buttons, you can do 4 things. Because nowadays, all of these automation systems, and I think, what JoAnn's saying, particularly with the Crestron system being completely end-to-end, you have this sort of control over being able to do things where you've got a button that can, of course, do a scene. And traditionally, people can think of all off scenes, all, like a good morning scene and those types of things. But then integrating with other things, with music, with turning on a TV, being able to kind of create these sort of multi kind of AV type of experiences with the touch of a button. There's also a bunch of other kind of features that most of these keypads have. And that's backlighting, ambient backlighting kind of adjustment. So at night, it's not showing the backlighting as bright as it would during the day in a bright room. So that really kind of helps people to sleep better. We've talked about wellness a lot, but still be able to, wake up and see the buttons. A lot of the high-end keypads have laser engraving. So the kind of the words are custom engraved. And that's custom as in the sense that every single one of them is built this way. So built into the price, is this sort of the ability for an integrator or a designer to say, these are the scenes that we want, and we want them mapped on all of these buttons. So the idea is that somebody walks into a home and it already has these things pre-engraved. But if you think about everything that needs to happen before that point, the lighting design has to be made with intent. You have to understand, at least at a basic level, what the client is going to want to have. I think on the panel yesterday, there was the idea of these standards of button naming and doing things that make sense, but also like people love to play around with it. Like people love to have a party button, a romantic button, right? It's just different kind of things that make this very personalized. And so that is part of the conversation, which you can't really have, as we've said multiple times, with integrators coming in at the end of a project. If you're involved at the beginning, and if you're talking to the lighting designer or talking to the client, and understanding their preferences around this, it's really powerful. So
we talked a lot about, some people bring up that this Post-it notes, or this is the one to turn off or on. But do your clients, once they're engraved, is it better for them to use the home and figure out how they want to personalize their buttons, or it's better to go in with them personalized?
Well, it is now becoming more the standard that you go in with them personalized. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason that's happening is that a lot of manufacturers realize that if you do post engraving, some integrators don't take that final step, and you do end up with a beautiful keypad with Post-it notes next to it, or a little label on it. And it doesn't really show the product well, for that to be done. So I do support that kind of idea of bringing that, kind of up a bit earlier.
Completed.
Yeah. You can go to the next one. I'll show you a different style of keypad, that has a little bit of a different, more tactile feel. So, and this is the thing about keypads and touch interfaces, because you have to have them in every room, in most kind of locations, then, there's an opportunity to use them almost as pieces of art, right? And so interior designers love to be able to play with the colors and textures. These are, you saw previous in sort of more of a shiny gold. You've got sort of metallics that are mattes and different button configurations. The backlighting on this, you can see is very critical to the look of it as well. And these are engraved. So it's really, there's a lot to play with here. And that is part of, leading a client through. And, you don't want to add too many more decisions in what is already a very complex process. But what we've seen is that there are different people that engage with home building in a different way, right? And so you have, people that enjoy technology and enjoy design, and this is one of the places that the two things really intersect. And we love kind of walking people through
with this particular one in Boston. There's a lot of restorative projects, saying in the 1800s, and some people like the nostalgia yet the modern look of grandma's old electrical buttons, and it kind of looks appropriate in the setting, yet it's that modern version of turning things on.
Yeah, and I will sort of warn people in the sense that designers sometimes really love some of the manual switch type ones. Like there's a particular brand, Forbes and Lomax, which is desired by a lot of kind of designers because it has a very kind of physical switch kind of mechanism. But you lose a lot of the advanced functionality by going with something like that. Yes, the look is wonderful, and you can turn on and off lights, and you can activate scenes. But these buttons, you can double tap, you can press and hold, and they'll do different actions, right? And in a way, it's almost like, grandma comes in, she knows which buttons to do things, but you as sort of somebody maybe that's more technical might know, hey, this is a hold and press, and it'll play a different music playlist, right? We have in all of our homes, we have a cleaning button, right? Which is not sort of necessarily on a keypad, but the homeowners and the cleaners know if they go to the all on and they hold it down for 3 seconds, every light comes up to 100%, which makes it so much easier to sort of clean things, right? So it's like just these little subtle things. So some of the sort of more basic kind of interfaces, which look great, don't have that capability. And that is sometimes something just to navigate with designers who just come and, people on Instagram, oh, I love the look of this, nice. Right? But, you have to kind of tell them the pluses and minuses of different interfaces.
Great.
So this is a different brand, a European brand as well, and very unique look and much more towards the piece of art on the wall kind of idea. Right. They are playing around with the idea of touch, right? In the sense that grandma's not going to know what to do with this, right? I mean, it is, you're just going to press the button and see what happens, right? But they have sort of a multi-touch kind of way of working with it. So you can press 2 buttons together and it creates a different thing than pressing on one. And each one of those interactions is programmable. So it's fascinating because there's so many different options. I mean, this one tends to be selected by designers or by clients who particularly gravitate towards this kind of geometric look, this kind of art piece type of look in these finishes. They're fantastic. They're also expensive. So in a way, it's sort of like you're choosing to go this direction. And once again, it's that sort of like, how do you use it and getting people to understand how you use it. There's a really nice feature on this one, which is if you just put your entire palm on it, it goes sort of all off, right? And so as you're exiting a room, you just brush by it and put your palm on it, and everything shuts off, including music and TV and all that kind of stuff. So
is it just touch activated or push?
It's touch. Like there's no physical kind of feedback. But they make other ones that have like almost like a real physical kind of feedback.
Do you have that set up in your showroom?
Yeah.
Do people interact?
Yeah. I mean, they're really, and the showroom experience is so key. Because the tactile experience, I mean, it's the difference, I think, between the premium kind of brands in terms of keypads and touch interfaces and what you go to the Home Depot and get. Right, it's the sort of the plastically click versus the real kind of feel of metal of and of course that's very specifically designed in these high-end keypads. They spend a ton of time engineering what it feels like. So it does have a high-end feel, much like a car and shutting the door.
Right. So if someone chose this, can they choose it for 2 rooms and do something more general?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, this is definitely like a showpiece.
Yeah, that is a showpiece.
Yeah. And this,
it would be hard on every...
Oh, yeah. Like you're not doing this in your bathroom. You're definitely not. And this particular brand, I mean, this particular one is metal, but they also have, they have brushed metal, they have stone, I believe, still. So yeah, you're doing this in great rooms. You're doing this in your dining rooms where you're going to be entertaining, and these are your showpiece, a touch, keypads and such. But yeah, this is definitely a one-off type of space where you're really going to be showing off, and it's going to complement just the right space. That's a perfect complement to that that backdrop, that wallpaper. But yeah, you're definitely not going to be doing that in your powder room, in your kitchen or something. So that's a perfect complement there.
I mean, I'm redoing my house, and I'm using these in my kind of living room, and then I'm using these in a matte plastic, which is actually, I mean, it sounds plasticky, but it has a great
beautiful.
feel. And they're doing that in bedrooms, but like literally in utility closets, and you just go in with Sakura, style, but with smart capability, right? And so there is this mix and match ability to do things with this, which is, I think, sometimes complicated to explain, right? A lot of people, just the concept of having scenes to begin with is something where you start with the all on and all off. But understanding that even if you do have like a standard Decora style switch, well, if you get the right one that integrates with the control system, then it can be all part of the all on and all off. But then there's also the wiring aspect of it. Some of these are low voltage, some of them are high voltage, some of them can be wired directly to a load, especially in retrofit scenarios. These are all things, of course, that the manufacturers have made intentionally to allow you to work with these in many different kinds of scenarios. But as a integrator, as a builder, you've got to understand what can work in certain situations and what can't. Particularly retrofit. You have challenges with if it's wired up with the traditional switch load, and you have more limited capabilities in terms of what you might want to wire in.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. So here we are. So we have our Crestron Horizon keypad. We have this in our black glass, and this is a beautiful complement to, so we were talking about different spaces. This would be great in, and this is our black glass that you have there in that powder room, and then we also have the white glass, and this is something that's configurable there. You see there that we have the medium rocker, so you're not sacrificing anything. We're talking about sacrificing some functionality for some aesthetics there. So we really tried to balance the technology, the function with the aesthetics there. So again, you have that medium rocker there on the right on the black keypad. So you have that temperature up and down. Again, super, super simple. So again, the balance there, easy to see there. We are able to get up to 16 font on our keypads. So easy for anybody to pick up and use there. So we're balancing there the icons. You get the larger font there. And then I can't see, is that the morning and then relax? So yeah, so then you're able to do the rocker and then 2 scenes there. So you're able to, again, get that functionality and then the aesthetic. And again, glass, a lot of these different finishes, you're going to have that problem with your fingerprints. So on these, we actually have an anti-fingerprint coating there. So, in any of these different spaces that you're going to have, obviously touch is going to be key. So that's going to be something that you're going to see, especially on a black glass finish. So we have that anti-fingerprint finish on there, or coating on there. So you're not going to have to worry about that, because what's the point of a beautiful finish like that if every time you look at that, you're going to have that distraction of those fingerprints there. So we have that, again, that balance of the function and the aesthetic there on that black. And again, we have that so that it can fit the whatever aesthetic with the white. And you'll see on the white, you have the 5 different buttons there. So we can actually do 6 different configurations for the buttons for any of our Horizon family of keypads there. When you're not looking at the black finishes, because again, that's a little bit of a step up for the luxury. On the matte finishes, we have the black, almond, and the white. So a lot more of the choices that you have there when we're looking at these finishes, these keypads, they're a lot more flush, they're a lot more aesthetic. And here, because we're looking at a different, especially the clientele that you all are working with, you might have different, families, the mixed generations that you have living within the space. We already talked about the increased size for the fonts. We can also do different languages. We don't know, who's living in the homes. You could do different languages. You can do different font sizes, like we talked about, up to 16 font. You can do different font styles. You can do bold, italic, if you'd like, for whatever reason, underline, or strike through. A lot of times people like to play around with them. You can name whatever scene you'd like, and a lot of times people, have a lot of fun with them, and they like to do a strike through for like when somebody is complaining about something, and they like to have a little bit of fun, like when one of the spouses is, just like. Well, I won't get into some of that, but they like to have a lot of fun with that. So so they can customize that, and instead of having the Post-its next to them, they like to just have a little bit of fun. So.
Is it standard for them all to be backlit? Or are these backlit?
Yeah, so these can be individually backlit, so they can be individually RGB, so they can be whatever color you want, and contextually backlit as well. So let's say one of those scenes is like a music button. So it's like a music scene. So it's going to play music all throughout the space. But let's say that music scene, the source is Spotify. So if that Spotify scene is playing or that Spotify source is playing, you could have that green. But let's say you change it to Pandora, then that music button is going to be lit blue. So that at a glance, you're going to know which source it is, so that it can help you to contextually know which source is playing, so that you can know, who's playing or what you can change it to, however you would like to do that. And you can also, on these keypads, it can be, you don't even have to get as granular as that. If you just wanted to do warm white or cool white, depending on what time of day it is, so that, it sounds like it's why would we care about that? But when your homeowners are thinking of that, during the time of day, it really does make a difference, because during the day, a cool white and at, 100% brightness, it's fine. But at, 2 o'clock in the morning, if they've just got up and you wanted to use the restroom or their bathroom, and they're walking by that keypad, and because of the light sensor that is already built into there, and that keypad lights up, if it's 100% brightness and cool white at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're just walking by, and it's jarring them awake, that's not the best experience that they're going to have. So at a different time of night, like 2 o'clock in the morning, it can be at 30% brightness at a warm white. That's a huge difference in that experience that homeowner is going to have. So to be able to do that, and to be able to have that as a contextual white brightness, that's a different experience that we're able to provide to them. So that's huge. Thank you for bringing that up.
And I just was asking with the temperature, is there any prompt saying the temperature, climate? Like if you wanted to go to 72 to 73, is it telling you where you're at and your temperature if you go up or down, or does it gauge?
Well, not so much on the keypads.
Okay.
We'll be able to see on the touch panels later, and also in some of the voice, partners that we work with.
So this is like a quick walk by, just a little warmer.
Yeah, we can do temperature up and down on some of these. So you can just, just toggle that with some of our rockers. Yeah, so we can do that. You're not going to be able to see contextually exactly what temperature is, but you can do up and down on here as well.
Does it have a temperature sensor in it?
This one does not.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys have ones that do?
We do have the keypad. I'm sorry, the thermostats.
Thermostats.
Yeah, so we do have those, and I apologize I didn't include those in this deck. But we do have touch thermostats as well. Yeah. Oh, so this is our touch panel, so we talked about the one touch control. There's no sound, but I just activated the welcome back scene, so my lights opened up, or my lights turned on, my TV turned on, my shades have opened up. And it just does that whole welcome back scene. And you'll see it's like a really crystal clear interface there. And that's our 10-inch touch panel. We also have a 7-inch touch panel and a 5-inch touch panel. And here it's showing our interface for Crestron Home. Crestron Home is a configuration-based platform. So you'll see it's super, super clear. It's very easily laid out so that anybody that's had a smartphone in the last 10 years can very easily pick it up. And I think that's really, it's how most interfaces are going nowadays, so that, it's very easily laid out. So you have that consistent feel. No matter, again, like with which house your clients are at, you know exactly how to interface with your system. You know how to interact with your system. There's less of that learning curve. I think that a lot of clients that have used, smart homes in the maybe 15, 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. The design of the interface was really at the mercy of the programmers. It was how they designed the systems. It was the fonts that they were comfortable in using and how they like to design systems. And if your clients had, a home here in Orlando versus in Venice, Italy, or, wherever, you would be more than likely working with different integrators at each of those spots. And those systems would be designed differently. So they would have a very different experience in each of those spaces. But now, with all of these different platforms, especially being configuration-based, not only is it more cost-effective, but you have the same experience as far as how these systems behave and also how the interfaces are designed. So you'll see there, they are, consistently designed on the touch panels, on the touch panels themselves, whether they are the 10-inch, the 7-inch, or the 5-inch, or whether you're, picking up your phone or your tablet, what have you, they're all going to look the same. So,
Yeah, that's something that
yeah.
we found is really great for that experience, is that a lot of these interfaces are exactly the same now between the phone and the tablet in particular. So if somebody has an iPad, has the Crestron app, and then they're going to the wall-mounted touch panel, even changes that they're making, adjustments that they're making, photos of rooms, those are all mapped out consistently across both touch experiences. So.
And where are people tending to put them? I mean, I know the kitchen tends to be the mecca or the entryway from a garage, but what other locations? Are they putting more of these within rooms or just choosing one or two?
Yeah, typically we'll see at the entryway. So, that's your starting point. So when you come home, when you're leaving home, that's where you're going to do your welcome home scene. So to wake up your house. And then, adversely, when you're leaving home, that's where you're going to shut your house down.
Yeah.
So that's where you can do your whole home scenes and such. Also in the, the primary bedroom, because that's where, when you're shutting down for the evening, that's where you're going to be doing the same thing. You're arming your home, you're setting your home, to sleep. Is that where you're seeing them as well?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot, with 2-story houses, one upstairs, one downstairs, and certainly by the entrances. That's a big part, adding to what you guys were saying on having one same platform or same experience across all your devices. What you're seeing a lot of as well is customization, where maybe the husband would prefer a certain different type of layout than the family does. But then again, they're consistent across all their platforms, whether remote controls, their touch panels, or their phones, all have a very familiar experience. But that ability to customize it by individual. So you're seeing a lot of those trends. But certainly, we're seeing on average about 3 touch panels per home.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we were just talking about different spaces. So, when we're talking about the tabletop touch panel, the kitchen is a great place to do that, because you're not going to have a lot of that wall space. But, again, we're looking at the same consistent, interface there. So, we'll not dwell on that too much, but just another way to interface with the system, but the kitchen is a basic is the best place to use the tabletop touch panel.
Can you walk around with that, take it off, or does it stay?
This particular one, no, but we do have a wireless one. And it's very funny because, so our wireless touch panel, we do have the tabletop docking station, and then it also has a wall mount. And a lot of people, they say, well, why would I want that? I can just take an iPad around. But your iPad's going to walk away. Your iPad, it's either going to, somebody's going to walk away with it and use it for recipes over here, or, one of the kids is going to walk away and play Words with Friends or whatever they do, I don't know, for, however many hours, because it's not dedicated to control. So when you have a dedicated touch panel, whether it's wireless or what have you, and you can walk around with it, that's great for somewhere like in the kitchen where you need something tabletop. But you can also take it out, when you're entertaining outside, just put it right by the grill, and, you have it right there whenever you need it. And it's, again, dedicated right to control. So that's a great use case for something like that. And then this is, again, that consistent interface when we're looking at touch panels. And this is a great one. This is a work from home touch panel. I wish John Galante was here, because we always joke about this. This is one of my favorite products, because it is work from home touch panel. You get the ability to control the home. You'll see there it's the full capabilities, the full function of a touch panel. But on all 4 corners of this piece, you have the omnidirectional mics there. So, you have it sitting right on the desk. You have the omnidirectional mic. So as I'm as I'm working from home, I can stand up. My watch is, telling me you've been sitting for too long. You have to get up, but I'm still working. So I could be on a call and I'm pacing around my desk or whatever I need to do just to get myself moving. And then that whole back piece is a speaker. So I can just stand up. I'm moving. I'm just, I'm just getting myself moving and all of that. But my whoever I'm on the phone with at that far end, they have no clue, because it's still sound, those mics are still picking me up. So, and then I can still get the same audio because of that back speaker piece. So here, this is a quick demonstration of this. So you'll see it's the interface there. I can mute. I have that visual cue, so I don't have hot mic issues there. I can see what's going on in my entire house. So I see that the lights are on in the kitchen, but there's nobody actually in the kitchen. I can see that there, so I can just quickly go right into the kitchen, and then I see that the lights are on there, and then just very quickly, one tap, just turn them right off. So very, very easy to use, and you can see how small it is. That's my AirPods case right there. So it's 10-inch end-to-end and then 7 inches wide. So very, very easy, just fits right on my desk.
That's great.
Other interface options, we've got voice as well. So this is a platform called Josh. They're really the cutting edge, or have been, on the voice side of things. I mean, they're actually called Josh.ai, that's their website. And it's really interesting because they're some of the first people that picked up on generative AI and used it in the home. And when ChatGPT came out, they actually integrated, and they call it Josh GPT, where you can actually just interface with Josh and have conversations, and it uses ChatGPT to answer back. So it's sort of a different way of using AI. But it's where it really has shined for us is when you have very complex lighting systems. And if you think about it, it's not even really that complex nowadays. Like cool white, warm white, different zones, and then now you've got multicolor, full spectrum lighting. Technologies like Philips Hue and Ketra. Well, when you want to interface with those lights, right? It's fine when you've got one bulb in a lamp and you're playing around with it, and that's fun and great. Or some of the wonderful RGB stuff we've seen at the show for like the Eve lighting and things like that. But if you have your entire home kitted out with these types of bulbs, and if you imagine that every single bulb is addressable, can do a different color. Can do a different, cool white, warm white. You can even tell it, Kelvin. You have sort of infinite possibilities, and that's hard to really be able to control on a phone or a keypad in a way, because you're dealing with color wheels and sliders and things. Voice is actually a really nice way. So with Josh, you can walk into a room with full spectrum lighting, and you can say, "Hey, Josh, give me a sunset." And you're not pre-programming that. It knows the sunset corresponds to a certain Kelvin temperature, warm white, and it will give you that light. You can tell it, "Hey, Josh, give me chartreuse," any color name, and it actually knows RGB values for those things, right? And so we use it a lot in our showroom to demonstrate that capability. It's great for multi-purpose rooms, function rooms, even just, fun living rooms, getting people together, social settings, those types of things. We have people that have used it for St. Patrick's Day, for Christmas, right? I mean, all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to see how voice is progressing. And I think what we're seeing now is it's getting integrated into other platforms, in a much more rapid pace, because it's been a little bit of that, people have had interfaces and they haven't been that great, just like in cars, the voice stuff in a lot of cars. But I think with generative AI, the development of that and how widespread it's going to be, and much more conversational. Like Josh, you can give it compound commands and it will say, turn down the lights, close the shades, turn off my music. You can't do that with Alexa currently, and they're starting to release those functions. But Josh had that 2 years ago. So it's really fascinating, I think, how a lot of these sort of cutting edge innovations are going to come across to other platforms too.
You can probably explain better, but one feather in their cap was about not compromising information. So I think that's a good selling point.
I think for all of our platforms that we use, privacy is so important. The reason Alexa and Google are so cheap and so accessible is because they take all of your voice data, your conversation, and not necessarily conversations that they're going to use it for some evil, mechanism, but they are using that information to train generative AI models. And in fact, Alexa just removed recently, very quietly, the tick box that says, "Do not send recordings to the cloud," right? You used to have that option in Alexa, that it would only process it locally, but they finally gotten rid of it. And to me, that's just this validation of the big tech view of how they're using this data, why they can sell you something like Josh. These go for a couple $100. They're beautifully integrated. They can be actually put into keypads and integrated with that. But the reason you can get an Alexa Echo for $30 or even free, on Prime, is they're harvesting the data. And a lot of our clients understand and know that now, right? There's enough sort of articles about it. They want systems that are processing the data, but doing it either locally, or if it's going to the cloud, it's not to train some massive model, for Google or Amazon. It's being used by the manufacturers to improve the experience. And there's kind of a trade-off there. Like, can you tell Josh to add things to your shopping list and have it order things off of Amazon? No, but that's the thing, is like some of those integrations are a little bit different because you don't have this interconnectivity. But there is this offset in privacy that it's really important to let clients know about.
Yeah.
John, I was going to add, you obviously know you can go to Amazon and ask them to give you a list of your transcripts of all the prompts, where you actually asked Alexa for something, a timer on my, cooking, or something added to your shopping list. But you will see that it will really record everything you've said and things that you haven't prompted the word with, which is really kind of scary when you think about how much they're gathering. And it is partly to improve their AI, but also they're selling that information.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're making a lot of money. So they're offering you a free service, but really they're making a lot of money by capturing a lot more data from you. So privacy is increasingly important. And obviously all of our platforms, that is the most important thing, is that privacy and how it encodes and decodes what's going up to the cloud and what doesn't. So you can't really extract the information. And that's a really important part, is especially in luxury homes, we're talking about people who don't want everybody knowing everything about them. They want that personalized experience without having to give up a part of it. So obviously this is a different price point than a Google Home or an Alexa. But what I'm also seeing with voice is, like, it is a common thing now. The masses have now come to the point where we're no longer in the early adopters, and because of chat and so many other people, I mean, I agree with you, John, there's going to be a fast growth here in the next 3 years on voice and how we all live and experience with voice. It isn't just a simple, like, well, it'd be nice to say, give me a sunset, but the fact that now we're all expecting it to do so much more to improve how we live in the home. And I think that's what that luxury part, you're talking about touch. People love the feel of a button, right? Those things. And when we're talking about where voice is going and how privacy is going to continue to be even more important moving forward, you're going to start seeing more and more manufacturers leaning in that channel of privacy and, experience, tying it all in with the rest of the products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think we got, so this is a different sort of Josh. You just see it next to the kitchen. So you can, ask it for conversions, for, for even recipes and those types of things, much like an Alexa, that type of experience, but with much more privacy focus.
Yeah. So here we are, where we're looking at the different smart remotes. And here we have a hybrid, like the function, the aesthetics. So here we have your standard remote tactile feel on the bottom half of that of the space here on that remote. So you'll have your usual button feel there, your radial there. But then on the top you have that touch screen feel. So you can actually, we don't think of this as your typical remote. It's it's more like your environmental control. So on the top, you can do everything from, set scenes. You can actually do your HVAC control. You have that, like a slider up top, so that you can do everything from your shades, your lighting control, your cable TV, all of your different your sources up there. And we've just introduced two new versions of this remote. So it's a little bit more beefy. You have a little bit more weight. That was some of the feedback that we got. And it's a little bit more tactile on the back of this remote. It's a carbon fiber feel, so it looks a little bit different. It feels a little bit different. And now we have this horizontal docking station. So we got that. We got some of the feedback too from here, and this is again, that customer experience. Mm-hmm. We got that because a lot of our clients were saying, well, it's just a very unnatural way for me to reach for a remote. So like when you're thinking about reaching for something that's on your tabletop, you're not reaching for it, as your wrist is like this, you're reaching for it with your wrist like this, when you're reaching for something that's on your table. And a lot of our clients were saying, a lot of times I'm knocking it over, and you're paying a premium for a touchscreen remote here. It's a little over, MSRP is over $1,000 for one of these. And RMA, status is 0.0004 out of the box. So, out of the box, our failure rate is super, super low. But when, we're getting RMAs for remotes, because they're breaking, because as our clients are reaching for them, they're getting knocked off of the table. We're thinking, okay, how do we engineer this better so that they're not breaking them as they're reaching for them off of the table, and then they're breaking on their marble floors. Mm-hmm. And some of it was just as easy as re-engineering the docking station so that they're not sitting flush upright. They're just, they're horizontal like this. And then a lot of it was also the engineering for our marine customers, so that as they're on their, again, the caliber of the clients that you're working with, as they're on their yachts and, on they're out at sea, as if you have a an upright docking station, a lot of times that's going to be knocked right off of that docking station. So again, it looks really beautiful, it looks really cool and sleek to be, horizontal like that, but also there's functionality there. So again, balancing that, making a few little tweaks there, but there's also some engineering behind the, that change that we had there.
I really like this concept, and I think relying on phone, if you're like me, I live on 1% my whole life. I'm like, it's going to die at any time, and I won't have access to what I'm looking to do. So you always have that, and then other people and then you have your phone on, or kids do, and then you get distracted because something's popping up. You're focused on your entertainment when you're in that room and not relying on your phone.
Yeah, absolutely. And, everything is right there because, like you say, you always have your phone and, the ability to control things on your phone. But it's, sometimes you're at 1%, but also, like somebody asked me the other day, just yesterday, actually, like I can do this all on my phone. Why would I need to buy a remote like this? Well, imagine this, I can't see because of the lights, but he might actually be here. Imagine, you're about to start family time, movie time on your phone. And then you see, that notification pop up. It's that email that you've been waiting on. And like, let me just really quickly, answer that email. And then, let me answer this other email. And then before you know it, an hour and a half has gone by. You could have watched that entire movie with your family. Right. And, all of that is you've wasted all that time, where you could have been spending that time more meaningfully with your family. So, to have this as your primary control is, is obviously the better way to spend that time. So of course, that's the way that we like to operate, at least. So, thank you. Yeah, of course.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So as I talked a little bit earlier, we're focused at NICE so much on that luxury market and whole home management. Everything from when you're driving to your house and it recognizes you by opening up your gates, whether it's using our cameras, the AI that's built in there that's looking at license plates. You're able to drive through, opens up the garage. There's so much that we're able to do with geofencing to really create that experience, right? You talk about, how do you like to get home? Well, I never want to come into a home that has lights that are off. So it recognizes that it's your car, your garage door opened up, it triggers all of the lights. We were talking about voice and personalization. NICE just launched our own unique voice solution. The wake word is Milo. We had to use a word that we can use globally because we're selling the solution all around the world. And so it's very simple, very easy to use. You can just say, hey, Milo, turn on the television. And you might even just say, turn on Max. Hey, Milo, turn on Max and the lights. As you're saying, you have these compound words that you can say at the same time. So it'll turn on the lights, it'll turn on the television, the receiver, it'll do everything that you want, put it on the right channel, right HDMI by just your voice. And so you can do that, and I'll talk a little bit about our touch panels in a second, but it's really something unique that we're launching, and it is leveraging everything else that's already out there, right? The Google Home, the Josh.ai's, the Chat GPT, everything that we're seeing in the market, we're able to take that in and create a unique experience for someone. I really do believe that in the future, just like our face allows us to create different scenes, voice is also going to allow you to do that. When you're talking about, maybe my command and prompt might be different than my partner, and she's going to say something, turn on, in the morning, you might want a different type of light setting, depending on who's giving the command. Or you might have some embarrassing situations where somebody comes over and wants to play a funny prank and says, hey, add 3 pallets of toilet paper to my shopping list. Well, it won't recognize that command because of that voice. It's not registered in that system. Going back to that privacy factor, it's really important. So we're looking at voice, and we're also looking at customization, sort of that next level. There's a lot of cool things that we're able to do when we're talking about customer-centric experience, right? So personalizing fit for your life. This is our touch panel. We call them ITPs. We have an 8-inch and a 12-inch intelligent touch panel. Well, what makes it intelligent for us is the fact that you can do so many things with this touch panel. Obviously, you can connect it to your Google Home. You can add Alexa to that. You can also do things like face recognition. So you can go up there and it'll give me a different scene. It'll include the T-stat, climate, lighting. But when my son or daughter get over there, it will not have climate on there. Because at least in my household, they'll have the air conditioning on really high, wearing a hoodie, where you can barely see them and their heads down on their cell phone, on their mobiles. I'm like, why do you have the climate so high? Just take off your sweater. Right. So I don't want them playing with the climate. And we have some great videos. It's kind of cumbersome to show videos here, but we have some great videos illustrating how somebody walks up to an intelligent touch panel and you have a different scene. And then 2 seconds later, somebody walks up, it recognizes them, and a completely different layout goes out. Different experience for different end users. It's very personalized. It also has our Bluetooth, right? With the low light on your cell phone, it'll allow you to walk up and it'll recognize that you are in that room. So when you're saying, hey, Milo, turn on the lights, it knows that it's you and that you're in that particular room. You don't have to say, turn on the living room, back, right, sconcha, light, 2. It just says, it's my voice, it's me. Hey, Milo, turn on the lights. And it knows what room that I'm in by my cell phone. Most people walk around with their cell phone, and when they go into another room, oftentimes they will bring their mobile with them. So because of the technology that we have in our touch panels, it allows that to recognize that you're in that room. So it's that double authentication, your voice, your face, and also your mobile phone. There's so many things.
Does it work with a smartwatch as well, or?
So that's a great question. We don't have it personalized with any smartwatches yet, but that's definitely things that we're looking at, right? All these things that make us unique.
Yeah.
Because there's times where you may not have your mobile on you, but you have a wearable.
Right.
And it'll identify that it's you. So we're talking about luxury. It's those settings that you can do, those customizations for the homeowner. These touch panels, as I said, on average, we're putting at least 3 per install, but there's been some projects where there's, 12 touch panels.
Yeah.
But a big feature of that also is the intercom. An ability to intercom not just with the house, but maybe with another house that you have, or it doesn't even have to be in the same city. It can be in another country or in different parts of the US. You can intercom directly to that house. Maybe you're on travel and your kids are back at home. You can just hit intercom and it'll call that phone. It can call a phone, it can call another touch panel in another home.
I like that feature for even just aging in place. So if you want to check in on somebody and if they're responsive, I don't know if they're going to the video side of things at one point, but it is really helpful to connect when you're not available to physically get there.
Yeah, I think that's a big part. This is our remote. It's called the HR40. What's really unique about it, on the side of it, it's got a button for voice. So that's the activation. You don't say, hey, Milo, You actually physically have to touch the button to activate the voice. You can also view all of your cameras, of course, your T-stat, everything that you would be able to see on your mobile or touch panel, you can do on our remote, including seeing the cameras, right? Or our intercom. Somebody rings the doorbell, you're watching TV, you can just choose to pick it up and answer it and talk to them. They can't see you, but you can see them, of course, and just to be able to have that flexibility. And we are seeing a huge trend of people going back to remotes. For a while, people were like, no, I'll just do it on my iPad or iPhone, as you're talking about, but those things grow legs, the iPads do. And then the iPhone, it's just not a very good experience when they have to get out of Wordle and go to the app and then go to the setting where they can quickly just pick it up and call the command. So we're really trying to incorporate all of these features into that luxury, right? The touch, the talk, and voice, I think, is going to be incredibly important.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We'll have a little bit of time still for questions. I'm hoping we addressed, or you're learning some things about what's out there and what your clients are going to be able to access in the future of voice. Does anybody have any questions?
It's, for us, I think lighting control is almost in every luxury home, or it should be, right? I mean, just simply the all-off command. And also, I think if you spend any time with lighting designers, it's just the infinite possibility of these fixtures. You're starting to see that, a dimmer on the wall is just not really enough. But I think the other thing is, like, all of these systems are very scalable. We're using remotes primarily in home theaters, right? Like, that's the place where you absolutely want that dedicated, feel. We put in, these sort of high-end remotes in maybe 10% of your sort of standard TV and watching areas, because, there are a lot of capabilities that smart TVs have, and even talking to the other devices. But anytime you get into surround sound, multi-channel type of audio scenarios and those types of things, you have to start opening these things up. So as an integrator, I'm much more selective about this. There are certainly projects that a client wants to go whole hog. And then you're talking, 1.5 million and above. But I mean, we're putting these into much smaller projects, just very tactically to give people that experience as well. So it's really a conversation.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, you look at even like D.R. Horton's website and their home screen, they talk about technology in homes. It's a really big topic, not just for, smaller builders. You're looking at, mass production. And to your point, lighting and shades are probably where most people are starting. But it does vary. The price point of a house in, St. Louis versus Florida, California, New York, these are all different price points. So what is luxury at that point? It really is regional. But we are seeing that a lot more builders are going back to technology, not just to sell houses quicker, which was, I think, what we were talking about 4 or 5 years ago. Is like, use technology, you're going to sell your house a lot quicker and for more. And that was sort of the discussion point with builders then. And now it's not whether it's going to sell faster or for more. It's more of a demand that we're starting to see from consumers. They expect, a house to have a garage door operator, a house that has some type of luxury technology built into it. So it does vary depending on the region and the price point of the home. But I do think that now there is a demand there that builders need to include technology. And then, just a matter of, at that point, what type of technology and what makes sense for that region, for that type of production. But I really do believe it's driven now by demand of consumers. And it's not so much of us trying to talk about it as a feature. It's more of a need that people are expecting that. Just like you would expect that from any car that you buy. There's cameras, there's sensors, there's so much technology built into cars. And part of that is for safety, right? I mean, you can't buy a car that doesn't have a reverse camera today, but you're starting to see that people are expecting that in their home. So it's just a matter of at what level. And, that's really a different discussion, but certainly lighting and shades kind of Michael mentioned is definitely a place that most people are starting. And at the very least, it's wiring. It's really inexpensive to pre-wire for lighting and shades. And then obviously it's very easy to deploy something like what Crestron or Nice is deploying and several others. So we're making it a lot easier to incorporate the technology. And certainly you're going to see just a higher demand. And so it's just a matter of, where do you want to be on that spectrum? Do you want to be late to the game? Or do you want to be right there on par with what demand is asking for from consumers?
One thing that wasn't mentioned, but I always bring up, is that, depending on the demographic, some people have had these systems 20 years ago, might not have had the greatest experience. There were glitches, and then they're building their home and like, I don't want that. I don't want anything to do with that. I had a hard time with that. And I really encourage, that's why the showrooms are so important, and the education of how things evolved. And like the car scenario is always a good one, because do they really want to go back in a car with power windows, power versus a crank, right? So it really is about educating them that, things change and have evolved. And sometimes things were over-engineered, but now they have really fine-tuned and make these so easy, workable, usable for any age group. So I always like to put that plug in, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I really want to thank you for joining us today. I hope everyone got a little bit of something or learned about some of these new devices, handhelds, touch and voice. And we wish you luck in your future endeavors and incorporating these in your homes. So thank you.